Greetings and happy Thursday. Happy Thursday to one and to all. Perhaps it is Friday, depending upon where you are on the globe. This is breaking news. This is breaking news. Today, as we know, it is September the 11th, 2025, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'd like to take a moment of silence to remember those victims and first responders that were devastated and lives changed forever on September the 11th, 2001. Thank you. Give yourselves a round of applause for making it to and through another day because we do know that each day is a blessing. Again, this is breaking news at least 4 hours ago, but many news reports and outlets are coming out with the story. There has been several HBCU'S, and for those of you who may not be familiar with that acronym, that is historically Black colleges and universities were on lockdown earlier after receiving threats. Now, again, I implore you to do your research and fact check and look for any updated reports because there have been several. At first, there were five, as you can see in the headline. Then it went on to six and then to seven. And I think others may have implemented shelter in place just to err on the side of caution. So the schools that were mentioned in this particular story are as follows: Alabama State, Virginia State, Hampton University, Southern University, Clark Atlanta, Bethune Cookman, and Spelman, who, again, they took measures to implement a shelter in place. Now, it is not clear, and that is the frustrating and scary part. All of this is scary and disturbing. Where these threats came from, but according to the federales, the FBI, who released a statement that said they were aware of these hoax calls, meaning there has been no indication that any of these threats were credible, but it was serious enough for these colleges and universities to go on lockdown, many of them closing and canceling classes for today, Thursday, September the 11th, Friday, and some through the weekend. Now, since these threats came out and emails went to school officials, some schools have lifted their implementations of sheltering in place since there has been no violence or any attacks of that nature. There is, of course, an increase of security presence. And, of course, Reverend Al has spoken out. Unfortunately, that there are people, again, it's almost predictable that there was going to be a correlation made by a lot of mainstream media, but I have to report it the way it was reported, that this comes on the heels of the tragic passing. I have to repeat, on the tragic passing of Charlie Kirk on yesterday, who was speaking at Utah in front of many students. I am not going into detail with that. I've seen many of the stories, and despite how you may feel about a person's stance Depending on how you feel, period, about people, nobody, nobody deserves to have their life taken. And I mean that for everybody. And these last few weeks has been news about carnage and mayhem. And it seems like we're wrapping up the week on the anniversary of one of the darkest times in America. Threats to HBCUs. Now, some of them are saying that it could be racially motivated. I'm not going to say that. I don't see that. And again, according to the FBI, some of you don't think they're too credible at times. They're saying that these have been hoax threats, even though they take all threats serious. What were the threats? I have no idea. I have not seen. Maybe some of you have during your research or will during your research what these threats actually were, what was said, if anything, or left. It doesn't say in any of the news reports that I actually saw. So that is breaking news, and again, very disturbing because students just returned to school not too long ago. So, in summary, HBU, campuses on several, because again, at first it was 5, then 6, then 7. So I'll just say several. Were on lockdown after receiving threats. Again, the nature, the origin of these threats, at least at the time of this broadcast, has not been described nor released at this time. They're just considering it as hoax calls. Now, this did happen, I believe, in 2022 and 2023, where certain threats were called in to certain schools under the HBCU umbrella. Again, many of them have lifted the shelter in place initiatives because nothing, fortunately, thank goodness, has happened. But I would encourage families, loved ones, friends, relatives to please check on your children, your students at these schools because they have been advised to stay on campus if they live on campus, and those that work at these schools, if they work remotely, to remain in their homes. So this is, again, an ongoing story. There are many, again, so much tragedy this week. Again, the loss of life, Charlie Kirk yesterday, and the 2 students that were wounded on yesterday in Colorado. This is just, this is too much. This is entirely too much. Unfortunately, this is truly, truly a different world for which we live, and I would caution everyone. I don't care what your color is because we already know, we've seen for ourselves. Hate does not discriminate. So, with that, please be safe, be well, and be healthier. Please make sure that you share this information. Again, you don't have to share this video, but at least share the information, and have these conversations, as I've said at least 2 weeks ago, with your children so they can be cognizant of these types of dangers. I can't even imagine. I just can't. Until next video, bye bye for now.